Hello and welcome to Between the Tackles. I'm Doug Kide. This is Zach Cox. As you can tell, Michaela Vernava still not back.
I think she's ducking us.
I think she might be. I think that this is all part of her master plan.
She got too big time for us.
Yeah, she doesn't have her special segment prepared yet, so she's just ducking us and blaming it on the Bruins. But in all actuality, the Bruins are in the playoffs. The Celtics are in the playoffs. So there's a lot going on. But for us football guys here, there's not as much going on. But the Patriots kind of bailed us out this morning because I don't really know what we would have talked about otherwise. They hosted restricted free agents Mike Gillislee and Damien Williams on visits. This is pretty interesting, I'd say. Gillislee from the Bills, Damien Williams from the Dolphins, so two AFC East guys. This is the second year in a row that the Patriots have shown interest in a Bills restricted free agent. So let's start off with Gillislee first because that was the first news that broke. What do you think about the fit?
Yeah, I think Gillislee is definitely the more intriguing of the two.
Yep.
I think Damien Williams is kind of maybe like a depth guy. You compared him to a Brandon Bolden type, a special teamer who maybe can contribute a bit on the offensive side. I actually really like Gillislee. He's kind of buried underneath LeSean McCoy in Buffalo, but he averaged 5.7 yards per carry this season. He really kind of came along in those games when McCoy was hobbled and was out injured. I think he would be a great fit. He's not the biggest dude, but he does. He's a pretty good runner between the tackles in the red zone. He's known for his kind of a way to. He's a north-south runner, which is what the Patriots need. He doesn't do a ton in the passing game, but I do think he has that ability. So I think he'd be a good fit. And it's as you know, they always love to steal from fellow AFC East rivals. So.
Yeah, and it would be interesting if they did sign him to an offer sheet. That would mean that if the Bills did not match the offer sheet, that the Patriots would have to give up fifth-round pick, which for a starting caliber running back, that's not bad, especially if he was to share that role a little bit with Rex Burkhead. I think that we're kind of assuming that Burkhead will be the starter at this point. They also have Dion Lewis. They also have James White. So if they brought Gillislee in, that's a pretty dangerous four-headed monster there at running back. Obviously, like you said, Gillislee did average 5.7 yards per carry this season. I worry a little bit about that just because it might be the Bills have been very good at running the ball over the last 2 years. Carlos Williams averaged over 5 yards per carry. LeSean McCoy has averaged a ton of yards per carry. So we'll see how he would fit in. I think he's a good player. I think that he does have that potential. He's a big back. He's 5'11", 219 pounds. So he's bigger than Burkhead, bigger than White, bigger than Lewis. So I think you might as well take a shot on it. Like I said, a fifth-round pick. If you get him in here for 3 or 4 years, that's really not that much to give up for him. I'm not sure if they'd be willing to sign him to a contract, per year as hefty as Rex Burkhead. I don't know if we're talking about a $3 million per year guy, but maybe $2.5 million. See if the Bills are willing to match that. And at the very least, you make the Bills pay a little bit more for a guy than they were going to on the tender. So
yeah, he's only 26,
makes sense.
So he's still got plenty of years left on his legs. You would think.
Absolutely, and like you said, with Damien Williams, probably more of a Brandon Bolden type, but he does bring some versatility. So if they were to sign him to an offer sheet, he would probably compete with Bolden for that special teams role. And while we're still on this, Gillislee also did contribute on special teams for the Bills last year, so that's something else that he could add to the Patriots. But as far as Williams goes, he's only averaged about 3.5 yards per carry throughout his NFL career, and that's with each season. So he really doesn't do much as a running back, but he's a good pass-catching back, so he could at least be a backup option at both spots. He's got good size. He's 5'11", 228 pounds, so he is a guy who could potentially do some damage on the goal line as well. So I like both of these. I mean, just the fact that they brought them both in, I think that it's probably a good, I don't know, it's good to bet on it. It's a good risk. I guess there's little risk in bringing them in. At the very least, you see and you get to meet with some guys who will be on the Bills or Dolphins next year, so you get a little bit of a better sense of those guys. So I don't know. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it definitely shows that they're trying to square away this running back position before the draft, basically to know whether they will need to use a relatively high pick on a running back. If they can square away, if they can either bring back LeGarrette Blunt, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, or bring in one of these free agents, or even an Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch type, then if they can square that away, they don't really have to worry about using. I mean, they still could use a draft pick on a running back, especially with people going to hit free agency next year, but definitely lessens the need for them to use a higher pick.
Yeah, especially with Gillislee. He's 26 years old, like you said, and if they were able to bring him in for 3 or 4 years on that offer sheet, then yeah, that's the equivalent basically of drafting a running back, except you're getting someone who you know what he can already do in the NFL, whereas a draft pick, especially where the Patriots will be drafting them, you never really know what those guys are going to be.
He's somewhat of a proven commodity, even if he hasn't had starting caliber snaps.
Yeah, and he has had kind of an interesting career. He was drafted by the Dolphins, briefly was on the Cardinals practice squad, then moved over to the Bills, and over the last 2 years he's really, heightened his
he's come along,
value, I guess I would say, averaging over 5 yards per carry in 2 straight seasons. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, it's certainly possible the Patriots don't even sign them to offer sheets, but it does show that the interest is still there in those guys. And let's move on right now to Blunt, actually. We were going to talk about Marshawn Lynch, but we're kind of already on the conversation in Blunt already. Let's just stay there. This could be them kind of trying to push LeGarrette Blunt to sign the offer that's already on the table for him. I think that they're kind of putting pressure on him with all of these visits for Blunt to sign. They've brought in Adrian Peterson. There's reportedly some sort of connection with Marshawn Lynch. Now with Gillislee, Williams, they already signed Rex Burkhead. I think this is all just saying like, all right, LeGarrette, you ready to sign that offer yet? Yeah. We're showing interest in all these other guys. And if they sign a Gillislee or a Damien Williams, then there might not be room for LeGarrette Blunt on this roster. Yeah. And he hasn't received a ton of interest outside of the Patriots this offseason. So, I mean, you could even be looking at him not having a job until maybe the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all kind of I don't want to say a play to get LeGarrette Blunt back, because I do think that they would gladly take many of these guys that they've been working out. Yeah. But they want LeGarrette Blunt back from everything that we're hearing. LeGarrette Blunt wants to come back from everything that we're hearing. But the offer that the Patriots have given him is pretty low from what it sounds. It's way too low for LeGarrette Blunt to accept right now. But since he's not getting any other interest elsewhere, there's no real reason for them to offer him more money. Yeah. So I think this is kind of a saying, like you were saying, LeGarrette, we're glad to bring one of these guys in. We want you back, but I mean, if you're not going to agree to our terms, we're just going to go out and get one of these guys. Yeah. So it's going to be kind of, maybe they'll end up bumping it up a little bit to get him to sign, but. Yeah, right now the ball is, all the leverage is really on the Patriots side right now. And
there's really no, other than to do him a favor, to be nice to LeGarrette Blunt, there's really not a lot of reason to up that offer at this point, because he's not receiving interest elsewhere. So it's kind of amazing that a guy gets 18 touchdowns. Last year, people are talking about, is he a Pro Bowl snub, is he an All-Pro snub? And now he's still sitting in free agency over a month later. So I think that, it kind of shows where the value on a 30-year-old running back is, and there's plenty of those other guys who are still sitting out there as well, like Adrian Peterson, like Jamal Charles. So, yeah, it's kind of a tough go if you're a 30-year-old running back these days. And I don't know. I think it would make sense to bring Blunt back, but if you do have Rex Burkhead, and if you can get Mike Gillislee for as cheap as LeGarrette Blunt, then I don't know. Blunt is obviously a proven commodity in this offense, but he did significantly slow down at the end of the last season. He wasn't great in the playoffs, so I don't know. I'm sure he still has a lot left in the tank, but when you know that a guy might slow down midway through the season, you might want to bring in a younger body.
Yeah, the Patriots are in the position where they do not by any means need LeGarrette Blunt to be a productive offense this season. I'm sure they'd like him back. He knows the system. They don't have to worry about any kind of adjustment to the scheme and all that. Yeah. But yeah, with the pieces that they have and with the pieces that they're also looking at now, they definitely don't need LeGarrette Blunt in this offense.
Let's jump around a little bit, because the Marshawn Lynch reported connection broke.
Reported private interest, I think it was. Yeah.
Broke after we recorded the Football Word on Monday, so we didn't really get a chance to talk about that. If the Patriots were to bring in Marshawn Lynch, it's a complicated process, as I kind of discussed with Michaela Bernava on Monday. The Patriots, well, first of all, Lynch would have to unretire. And then he would still be under contract with the Seahawks for $9 million. So
nobody is going to pay him right now.
That's what you would think, yeah. And so the Seahawks would either have to trade him or release him. And for the Seahawks, if there's enough interest in Marshawn Lynch, it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense to just outright release him. So they would probably initially try to trade him. If the Patriots had to give up compensation for Marshawn Lynch and then pay him $9 million, not worth it whatsoever. Yeah, the guy just took a year off. He wasn't great in 2015. He was dealing with some injuries in 2015. If the Seahawks were to release Marshawn Lynch, then yeah, maybe you bring the guy in, but do you really want to pay him more than Rex Burkhead? Do you really want to give him $3 or $4 million? Is he really worth the trouble? As all the things that he brings to a team with not talking to the media, maybe not taking accountability. He recently, on Monday, knocked a cell phone out of a teenager's hand when they were seeking autographs at the airport, so that's something else that he has to deal with. They might press charges. So there's some headaches that are involved with bringing in Marshawn Lynch that aren't $9 million plus a draft pick worthy, at least to me.
Yeah, and I think more than that, you just don't know if his ability is $9 million worthy plus a draft pick. I mean, here's a guy, like you said, he struggled in 2015. He was hurt for a lot of that season. Then he didn't play at all last year. Who knows how active he was, whether he was in the gym every day, whether he was staying in shape, or whether he was, hey, I'm retired, I'm going to chill.
Right.
Like, there's really no indication either way of whether he's still in. I mean, I can't imagine he's in game shape right now, but even he's not even in normal offseason football shape. I think it's going to take a while for him to get back to that level. He is an older guy. He hasn't really been a very productive player since 2014. I don't know. I think that's a lot of risk, and anything more than maybe kind of a cheap flyer, I don't think is worth it for him right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So we're talking about Lynch, we're talking about Gillislee, we're talking about Blunt, even Damien Williams. If money was exactly the same, rank those 4 players.
Rank those 4 players. I'd say Gillislee, Blunt, Lynch, Williams right now. How would you say that?
I think I would go Gillislee first because he's younger, because that's a guy that you might be able to bring in on a 3 or 4 year contract. Then if he works out, you don't really need to worry about that position for a few years. So I think his age certainly plays a part. Then I might go Lynch just because the upside is higher than Blunt. And if you've already got Rex Burkhead in there, if you've already got Dion Lewis and James White in there, who you can rely on if something goes sideways with Lynch, then it's kind of worth the risk to bring him in and see what he can do. Then I put Blunt just because he's the proven commodity. You know what you're getting out of him. He probably would receive fewer carries this year if Dion Lewis is coming back healthy, if Rex Burkhead's going to have a big role in the offense. And then Williams is last. Like I said, Williams is a Brandon Bolden type. He probably would be competing with Brandon Bolden, even for a role on the team if they were to bring him in. We didn't really talk about that, but he was given the low round tender. Since he was an undrafted free agent, the Patriots would not have to give up compensation for him if they signed him to an offer sheet and if the Dolphins declined to match. So there would really be no risk other than the contract in bringing in Damien Williams. But yeah, that's how I'd rank them. I don't think that Lynch is as exciting as a lot of Patriots fans think he is, because I think that a lot of football fans get stuck in 2-3 years ago with the Adrian Petersons and the Marshawn Lynches. But I don't know. I think he just has a little bit more upside than a guy like Blunt.
Yeah, people definitely get the name recognition goes a long way in stuff like this. But then you look and you see that Marshawn Lynch, Adrian Peterson, Jamal Charles. Right. You could say that these were the 3 best running backs in the league 2 years ago, and they all currently don't have jobs. So it shows that the people who are actually making the decisions in the league don't regard them nearly as highly as maybe some fans do.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting that the Patriots haven't shown the interest in Jamal Charles that they have in Peterson and Lynch, because I don't know. I mean, if you're throwing in Peterson and Charles into that ranking category, I might put Jamal Charles above Marshawn Lynch. I'd probably put Adrian Peterson behind LeGarrette Blunt just because I don't think that it's worth all the off-field issues. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm still pretty intrigued by Jamal Charles. It's kind of a similar circumstance as Lynch because he was injured for most of last year. He was injured in 2015. So he's another guy who you kind of have to look back at 2014 to see what his true potential is. But I mean, he's still out there. I can't imagine it would cost much to bring him in.
I feel like we haven't heard his name much at all.
Right.
He hasn't really been linked to anybody that I can remember, at least
in
the last couple of weeks.
Brought him in.
The Seahawks brought him in shortly after free agency opened, I think. But other than that, he's been kind of a ghost lately, which is a little bit surprising. I mean, I wouldn't expect him to get a big money contract or anything like that now at this point in his career, but I am surprised that more teams aren't showing interest in him.
Yeah, I mean, he's legitimately one of the best running backs of all time. I mean, the guy guy has averaged, I don't have it up here because I'm on Roto World, like over 5.5 yards per carry, something like that throughout his NFL career. And like I said, it's been a while since he did that. He's not as big as Marshawn Lynch, Mike Gillislee, Adrian Peterson, LeGarrette Blunt, those guys. But, I mean, yeah, 5.5 yards per carry in his career. Only played 3 games last year and averaged 3.3 yards per carry. Only played 5 games in 2015, but he did average 5.1 in that season, 5 yards per carry in 2014. I don't know. I mean, if he's back healthy and if you can trust him to stay healthy, then obviously he's proven that he can do this in his NFL career. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of a wait and see to see if they actually bring him in. But yeah.
So looking at this now, do you think that both Peterson and Jamal Charles end up signing with other teams before the season starts?
That's a tough question. God, maybe not. I mean, and as crazy as it sounds, I mean, I guess LeGarrette Blunt will probably catch on somewhere just because he did play a full 16-game season last year. He did have the 18 touchdowns. So at some point, I think that he will be willing to sign with someone. Charles and Peterson, I would probably lean towards them signing somewhere too, just because I think at some point they will get desperate. They'll realize that they aren't going to get the $5 or $6 million contract that they might be pursuing on the open market. But it could still be a while. I mean, we are still months away from training camp, and this might be a situation where they aren't on a team in OTAs and minicamp, but a team finally gives them a shot during training camp to earn a spot. But I don't think that they'll really be guaranteed anything.
Yeah, it's quite wild. Things changed a lot in just a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's really the biggest topic right now is these running backs. And I guess one other question on this is, we're talking about all these guys. The Patriots are bringing them all in. Do you think the Patriots need another running back before training camp starts?
No, I don't think they need one. I think it would help them to have one. But when you look at most teams, how many teams have 4 running backs that they really rely on as big parts of their offense? Yeah. And especially when you look at the other weapons that they have between Gronkowski and Dwayne Allen at tight end, the whole slew of receivers that they have right now, there's only going to be so many touches to go around anyway.
Right.
And I think it would definitely help their offense. It would really kind of vault this offense into a really almost untouchable level, I think, if they brought in any of these guys that we're talking about. But right now, I don't think that the fact that they only have 3 real offensive running backs right now is going to severely hinder their offense by any means. I mean, obviously it would help. I think they might even be better off if they can't come to quality terms with any of these guys. Pick up somebody in the draft, maybe use him as kind of a backup stash kind of guy. But yeah, I think they're okay as they are right now. I think people are kind of overrating their need for a running back just because there's not much to nitpick about this team right now. Yeah. But what would you say about that?
I would say that they need one for the future, and it's almost kind of interesting that we are talking about the Marshawn Lynches and the Adrian Petersons, because Burkhead just signed a 1-year deal. He's only around for 1 season for now. So
all of their starters, they're 3-pronged sword or whatever you want to call it right now. It's going to be all gone next season. So.
Yeah. Well. Potentially.
They're all yes, they are not under contract for an additional season.
James White, Deion Lewis, and Rex Burkhead all will be free agents after the season. So, I mean, in the draft, they could be looking for a 3rd down back. They could be looking for an every down back. I think the need is a little bit greater at the every down back position just because Burkhead is only 210 pounds. Because I think it will be easier potentially to bring back James White next season than it would be to bring back Rex Burkhead if he does have a good season. They just signed into a 1-year, $3.15 million contract basically to prove himself. So if he does prove himself, then you might be talking about that kind of money over a prolonged period of time, and Patriots might not be willing to do that. So I think it's a future need, and the Patriots usually do like to address future needs either through the draft or through free agency. But this season in particular, I don't think that they need one, because Deion Lewis can be an early down back. Rex Burkhead can be an early down back. James White is that Kevin Falk guy. He's the 3rd down back. Deion Lewis also can play on 3rd down. And then, I mean, I don't think anyone's excited to see Brandon Bolden on offense, but he's at least proven that he can be a between the tackles runner and he can be a pass catching back. So if it comes down to it, he could be thrust into an offensive role and the Patriots can still survive. I mean, it's not like you're talking about them putting a fullback in there or something. And I think that DJ Foster has become kind of a forgotten man as well, Patriots could view him as the potential future third down back. He's still under contract. They could stash him for another year. And if they do think that they might lose James White, then he could be that guy that steps up in 2018 as the next Shane Vereen, Kevin Falk, James White type.
Yeah, they obviously feel pretty highly about him, given evidenced by the fact that they didn't put him on the practice squad for a lot of last season. They kept him on the active roster because I think they were afraid that if they put him on the practice squad, he might end up getting snatched away by somebody else, which kind of shows that even though he didn't really contribute much at all this season, he was inactive for almost every game. I think they do have plans for him in the future.
Definitely. Anything else going on here as far as the Patriots go? I don't think so. It's all running back heavy.
It's all running. It's very
all running back
heavy.
all the time.
Yeah, but yeah, we're still in that kind of dead zone. We're getting out of the dead zone. The dead zone will be over next week or 2 weeks. What do we got? 2 weeks from today is the first day of the NFL draft. Yep.
Still in dead zone for one day.
Still dead zone. Yes. Next week might be a bit of a dead zone still.
Yeah.
But yeah, draft should be exciting, and then after that, we really get cruising right into off-season workouts and OTAs and whatnot, and then
that will be fun to watch this year. Just to see Brandon Cooks out there, to see Rex Burkhead, to see what all of these guys can do.
It's, a lot of new faces.
Stephon Gilmore too. It's the kind of thing where you don't see a lot of the guys in the trenches, so we probably won't be able to know much about Coney Ely after OTAs and minicamp, but Brandon Cooks is going to be out there even faster than he would be on a football field because he's not wearing pads. So it'll be fun to watch him go up against the Malcolm Butlers, and he's torched Malcolm Butler in the past. So we'll see what happens there, and who knows if Malcolm Butler will even still be around. There's still the potential that he could be traded to the Saints. So we'll see how all of this winds up. But yeah, thanks to the Patriots for hosting those guys on the visit, because otherwise we might be talking about like what Matthew Slater said on Tuesday, which quite frankly was not that interesting. But you'll be talking to Patrick Chung today. We'll see what he has to say, and keep it on NESN.com to find out what Patrick Chung had to say to Zach Cox and the rest of the Patriots reporters. How's that for a tease? That'll do it for this week's Between the Tackles, and maybe Michaela Vernava will be back next week. We'll see if she keeps ducking us.
We'll see.
I guess maybe it depends on how the Bruins do. So if that's the case, then hopefully she's not back, and hopefully the Bruins are still in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that'll do it.